The twin suns of Kepler 442b burned without mercy across the endless orange desert. Sergeant Marcus Cole wiped the sweat from his forehead and checked his squad's position on the holographic display attached to his wrist. They had been walking for 6 hours through the most hostile terrain humanity had ever tried to colonize. The sand stretched in every direction like a frozen ocean of fire, and somewhere beneath it lived creatures that made Earth's deadliest predators look like house pets. "How much further to the research station?" Private Chun asked from behind him. Her voice carried the exhaustion they all felt. Marcus looked at the display again. "Another 3 kilometers. We should reach it before the second sunset." There were 8 of them in total. 8 soldiers from the United Earth Colonial Defense Force, sent to investigate why Research Station Gamma had gone silent 4 days ago. Communications had simply stopped. No distress signal, no final message. Just silence. The planet had been discovered 15 years ago, and humanity had established several research outposts to study its unique ecosystem. The most interesting feature of Kepler 442b was not its breathable atmosphere or its mineral wealth. It was the sandworms, massive creatures that live beneath the desert surface, some growing longer than 300 meters. They were the reason walking was dangerous and vehicles were impossible. The vibrations from engines attracted them like sharks to blood. "Keep your footsteps light," Marcus reminded his squad for the 100th time. "Remember your training. Soft steps. Random patterns." They moved in a scattered formation, each soldier walking with careful, irregular movements. It was the only way to travel through sandworm territory. Predictable rhythms attracted them. Heavy footsteps attracted them. The creatures could sense vibrations from kilometers away. Corporal Williams walked at the rear of the group. He was the heaviest member of the squad, and despite his best efforts, his boots sank deeper into the sand than anyone else's. He had complained about the assignment from the beginning. Now he was too tired to complain. "I hate this planet," he muttered to no one in particular. The ground trembled. Everyone froze. Marcus held up his fist, the universal signal to stop. They stood perfectly still, barely breathing. The trembling stopped. Seconds passed like hours. Nothing happened. "False alarm," Marcus whispered. "Keep moving." Slowly, they continued forward, but the tension had increased tenfold. Every soldier gripped their weapon tighter. Their plasma rifles would do nothing against a full-grown sandworm, but holding them provided some small comfort. Private Torres was the youngest member of the squad. He had only been on Kepler 442b for 2 weeks, and he had never seen a sandworm in person. He had watched the training videos dozens of times, but videos could not capture the true scale of these monsters. "Sergeant," Torres said quietly, "what happens if we actually encounter one?" Marcus did not look back. "We run. We scatter in different directions and hope it only goes after one of us. That's not very reassuring." "It's not meant to be reassuring. It's meant to be honest." They walked in silence for another kilometer. The research station appeared on the horizon, a small collection of silver buildings surrounded by sensor towers. From this distance, it looked intact. That was a good sign. Then the ground exploded. There was no warning, no trembling, no time to react. The sand beneath them erupted like a volcano, and something massive emerged from the depths. Marcus caught a glimpse of circular rows of teeth, each one larger than a human being. He saw skin the color of dried blood stretching endlessly upward. He heard screaming. Then everything went dark. When Marcus opened his eyes, he was falling through complete darkness, surrounded by the stench of death and decay. He hit something soft and warm, and his body sank into it. For a moment, he thought he was dead. Then the pain hit him, and he knew he was very much alive. His left arm was broken. He could feel the bone pressing against his skin at an unnatural angle. His helmet was cracked, and the internal display flickered with static before dying completely. He was lying in something wet and thick, and when he touched it, his fingers came away covered in slime. He was inside the sandworm. The realization hit him like a physical blow. The creature had swallowed him whole, along with his entire squad. He was sitting in its stomach, surrounded by digestive fluids that would slowly dissolve him over the next several hours. "Hello?" he called out. His voice echoed in the darkness. "Anyone?" No response. He activated the emergency light on his chest plate. A weak blue glow illuminated his immediate surroundings, and what he saw made him want to vomit. Body parts, armor fragments, weapons scattered across the fleshy floor of the stomach. His entire squad had been consumed in a single bite. Marcus forced himself to stay calm. Panic would kill him faster than the digestive acids. He needed to think. He needed a plan. The walls around him pulsed with life. He could hear the sandworm's heartbeat, a deep rhythmic thudding that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The creature was still moving, still tumbling through the sand, completely unaware that one of its meals was still breathing. He checked his equipment. His plasma rifle was gone, lost somewhere in the chaos. His sidearm was still attached to his hip. His combat knife was secured to his leg. His emergency pack was mostly intact, containing a medical kit, water purification tablets, and 3 days of ration bars. And his grenades. 4 thermal grenades designed to generate temperatures hot enough to melt through steel. An idea began forming in his mind. It was insane. It was suicidal. But it was better than waiting to be digested. First, he needed to treat his injuries. He pulled out the medical kit with his good hand and found the emergency splint. Setting his own bone was the most painful thing he had ever experienced in his life. He screamed into the darkness, and the sandworm did not care. After securing the splint, he injected himself with painkillers and anti-infection medication. The drugs would keep him functional for a few hours. Next, he needed to move. The stomach was only the beginning of the digestive system. If he went deeper, he would find the intestines, and beyond that, the way out. It was disgusting. It was horrifying, but it was his only chance. He began crawling through the stomach, using his knife to cut through the thick muscle walls where necessary. The flesh resisted him, but human determination was stronger than alien biology. Every cut released more fluids. Every movement drained his energy. But he kept going. Hours passed. He lost track of time in the endless darkness. The creature's internal structure was like a maze of wet corridors and pulsing chambers. Sometimes the walls would contract around him, trying to push him backward toward the stomach. He fought against them with everything he had. At some point, he found a pocket of air and rested. His body was covered in burns from the digestive acids, and his uniform had dissolved in several places. But he was still alive. That was what mattered. He thought about his squad. Chun with her terrible jokes. Williams with his constant complaints. Torres, who had never even seen a sandworm until today. They were all gone now, reduced to nutrients for this monster. Their deaths demanded meaning. Their deaths demanded survival. Marcus continued forward. The intestinal tract was narrower than the stomach, and the pressure was constant. It felt like being squeezed through a tube of living muscle. Several times, he almost gave up. Several times, he wanted to just lie down and accept his fate. But something inside him refused to stop. Call it stubbornness. Call it the human survival instinct. Call it anger. Whatever it was, it kept him moving. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he saw light. Not sunlight, but the bioluminescent glow of the sandworm's lower digestive organs. He was close to the end. Close to freedom. He pulled out his 4 thermal grenades and began attaching them to the intestinal wall at regular intervals. If this worked, he would blow a hole through the creature's side and escape. If it did not work, he would die quickly instead of slowly. He set the timers for 30 seconds and started running. The explosions were deafening inside the creature's body. Marcus felt heat wash over him as the grenades detonated, tearing through muscle and flesh. The sandworm screamed, a sound that shook his entire body. Then the wall beside him ripped open, and sand began pouring in. He dove through the opening without thinking. The heat from the grenades had cauterized the wound, and he was suddenly tumbling through sand, unable to breathe, unable to see. His broken arm screamed in agony. His lungs burned for oxygen. Then he broke through to the surface. The twin suns had set, and the sky was filled with unfamiliar stars. Marcus lay on his back in the cooling sand, gasping for air, covered in blood and slime and digestive fluids. Behind him, the sandworm was thrashing in pain, trying to burrow back underground to heal its wounds. He had done it. He had survived. For a long time, he simply lay there, staring at the stars and breathing. Every inch of his body hurt. His arm was destroyed. His skin was burned. His uniform was ruined. But he was alive. When he finally found the strength to stand, he looked around and spotted the research station in the distance. Only 2 kilometers away. He could make it. He had to make it. The walk took 3 more hours. Every step was torture. Every breath was pain. But Marcus Cole did not stop. He did not rest. He did not give up. When he reached the station, he found it empty. The researchers were gone, their fate unknown. But the communication equipment was intact, and that was all that mattered. He sat down at the console and opened a channel to Orbital Command. His voice was barely a whisper. "This is Sergeant Marcus Cole of Colonial Defense Squad 7, requesting immediate evacuation. My team is gone. I am the only survivor." The response came seconds later. "Sergeant Cole, we read you. How did you survive?" Marcus looked down at his ruined body and laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of a man who had crawled through hell and come out the other side. "I refuse to die," he said simply. Humans are stubborn like that. 3 days later, a rescue shuttle found him unconscious but breathing. The medical team could not believe what they saw. The burns, the broken bones, the acid damage. By all medical logic, he should have been dead 10 times over. But Marcus Cole was human, and humans had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and the cold vacuum of space. A sandworm was just another obstacle to overcome. When the report reached Earth, it changed everything. Scientists began studying sandworm biology for weaknesses. Engineers designed new weapons specifically for fighting them. And the story of the soldier who escaped from inside a monster became legend. They called him the Worm Killer. They called him the Survivor. They called him proof that humanity belonged among the stars. Marcus did not care about titles. He cared about the 8 soldiers who died that day on Kepler 442b. He carried their names with him for the rest of his life, a reminder of why he kept fighting. Because that was what humans did. They fought. They survived. They refused to stay dead. The sandworms of Kepler 442b would learn this lesson eventually. They would learn that swallowing a human was easy. Keeping one down was impossible.